Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, your financial life seems stuck? That money comes in, but slips through your fingers. You even try to do everything right, but you live in fear of the future, with that constant feeling of insecurity. What if I told you that the answer you are looking for is hidden in a place where few have the courage to look? In the book of Proverbs, there is ancient wisdom, practical, clear, and inspiring, that not only teaches you how to manage what you have well, but also shows you how to build a truly prosperous life with a solid foundation, purpose, and divine direction. In this video, you'll discover 10 powerful lessons that aren't in modern finance textbooks, but were written thousands of years ago and are still more current than ever. These are principles that have already transformed the lives of those who decided to stop running in circles and start walking wisely. If you want more than just paying bills, if you are looking for clarity to make decisions, peace to sleep peacefully, and a faith that is also reflected in your finances, then this video is for you. Stay until the end, because each lesson you will hear today carries a code of wisdom that can unlock stuck areas in your life. And if you really want to thrive with purpose, prove it right now. Comment below. I will thrive with wisdom. This is your commitment to this new phase, and take advantage and tell us, where are you watching this video from? We want to know how far this message is reaching, and of course subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content that can transform not only your finances, but your entire life. Now take a deep breath and prepare yourself, because what you hear today could change everything. There's a difference between having money and living a truly prosperous life. And Proverbs is not just about coins, but about principles that shape the soul before multiplying resources. It's as if God is saying, before I give you the harvest, I need to make sure you know how to take care of the land. And it all starts with a single word: wisdom. Wisdom is not just intelligence, nor an accumulation of information. It is the ability to discern, to see beyond appearances, to make decisions based on eternal principles and not on fleeting emotions. The wise person is not the one who knows everything, but the one who knows where to look. And Proverbs makes this clear. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. When we put God as our first consultant, everything changes. How many times do we make financial decisions out of impulse, fear, or comparison? We spend to impress, we invest in things we don't understand, we go into debt without considering tomorrow. And when everything falls apart, we wonder where we went wrong. Proverbs answers firmly, "Blessed is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who acquires knowledge. For the profit that comes from it is better than the profit from silver, and the income from it than the finest gold." This wisdom is not abstract. It manifests itself in small daily choices, in self-control when faced with unnecessary expenses, in the patience to wait for the right moment to act, in the courage to say no when everything around screams yes. It is the wisdom that protects our future from the traps that our own desires can create. Imagine someone who inherits a fortune without emotional or spiritual preparation. In a short time, what was a blessing turns into a burden. Lack of wisdom turns abundance into ruin. On the other hand, someone who doesn't have much yet, but seeks understanding, is already building a solid foundation. It's like building a house on rock. It may take longer, it may require more effort, but it won't collapse in every storm. Proverbs is like a compass in a world of contradictory voices. While marketing tells you buy it now, wisdom asks you, do you really need it? While the world screams, seize the moment, wisdom whispers, be prudent, think about tomorrow. And it is in this contrast that true prosperity reveals itself. It's not about how much you earn, but about how you deal with what you have. And here's an important point. Wisdom is not acquired just by reading or listening. It is generated in intimacy with God. It is in secret, in prayer, in reflection, that we begin to discern the right from the convenient, the eternal from the fleeting. When you approach the Word, it begins to shape the way you think, and what was once confusing becomes clear. You start to make decisions with peace in your heart, even when the numbers don't make sense to the world. Wisdom also teaches us to observe. The Bible says, "Go to the ant, you lazy one, consider his ways and be wise." God invites us to look at creation and learn. The ant does not need a boss, pressure, or urgency to work. She acts with purpose, with discipline, and with a vision for the future. She keeps in the summer what she will need in the winter. This is the kind of mindset that wisdom develops. A vision beyond the moment, action guided by purpose. And maybe right now you're thinking, but I don't have wisdom. I made so many mistakes, I made bad choices, I wasted opportunities. The good news is that Proverbs also says, "My son, if you accept my words and hide my commandments with you, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and you will find the knowledge of God." In other words, wisdom is not reserved for a privileged few. It is available to anyone who sincerely seeks it. Seeking wisdom is an act of humility. It's admitting that no matter how much we know, we still need direction. It is recognizing that our emotions betray us, that our wills fluctuate, but that the word is firm. And when we make decisions based on this firm rock, we avoid unnecessary falls, preserve what we already have, and make room to receive even more. Wisdom also protects us from greed. How many people have ruined their lives because they wanted everything now? Why go into debt to keep up appearances? Because they believe that getting rich quick is synonymous with success. Proverbs warns that the thoughts of the diligent tend toward abundance, but those of the hasty toward poverty. In other words, wisdom teaches us to build calmly, with strategy, with patience. Because what is planted with purpose is harvested with peace. After all, wisdom is the greatest wealth anyone can have. With it, you can lose everything and still start over. Without it, you can have everything and still lose it all. Therefore, before seeking to increase your income, before trying to multiply your profits, the question is, have you built your financial life on the rock of wisdom? If wisdom is the foundation, diligence is the brick. And Proverbs doesn't mince words when showing the stark difference between the diligent and the lazy. The first advances steadily, the second stumbles upon its own inertia, and in the middle of this comparison lies the secret to building lasting prosperity. It's common for us to want great results. Everyone wants to reap plenty, but few are willing to cultivate the land day after day, when no one is watching, when there is no applause, when the seed hasn't even sprouted yet. The Bible says, "A lazy hand makes poor, but a diligent hand makes rich." It's a straightforward truth, but often ignored. And not because we don't know it, but because we underestimate the power of small habits. We live in an immediate generation. Used to quick results, we lose patience with the process. But Proverbs reminds us that healthy financial growth doesn't happen overnight. It is the result of perseverance, organization, and consistent choices. Diligence is like a ladder. Each step requires effort, but it brings you closer to the top. Laziness, on the other hand, feels like a treadmill. You move, but you stay in the same place. And it's not just about working hard. It's about working with purpose. There are those who run all day and at the end are further away than they were in the morning. The diligent person not only acts, he acts with direction. He does not confuse movement with progress. He understands that every action today builds the result of tomorrow, and that leaving it for later is the surest way to never see promises fulfilled. The word also says, "The desire of the lazy man kills him because his hands refuse to work." Here we see something profound. The desire for a better life is not enough. Dreaming without acting becomes a burden. The heart begins to get sick because it feels like it could be somewhere else, but it remains stuck in stagnation. And this generates frustration, guilt, comparison. The cure is in diligence, in the daily decision to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Often, what we lack is not opportunity, but constancy. How many doors opened and were lost due to lack of preparation? How many projects were started with enthusiasm and abandoned at the first difficulty? Proverbs warns, "The lazy man does not plow because of the cold, and in the harvest he will seek, but will find nothing." In other words, those who wait for the ideal moment to act end up reaping scarcity. Because diligence does not depend on favorable weather, she acts despite the discomfort. And maybe you're listening to all this and thinking, "But I'm a hard worker. I work hard, and yet I don't see results." Here it is necessary to reflect. Is the effort aligned with purpose? Is there focus, planning, or are you just busy but lacking direction? Biblical diligence is not just quantity of work, it is quality of action. It's knowing when to say yes, when to say no, and when to simply wait with patience and faith. Another point that Proverbs highlights is the risk of living outside of one's potential. The text says, "The lazy man hides his hand in his plate and does not even put it in his mouth." A strong image, almost absurd, but incredibly real. It represents that person who has everything at their disposal, gifts, talents, resources, but due to complacency, fear, or procrastination, they do not feed on what God has already placed before them. She lives below what she could live. And that is not humility, it is waste. Diligence also manifests itself in the way we take care of what we already have. There are those who wait for something big to happen and only then start to act. But Proverbs says, "Know the condition of your sheep and take care of your flocks." In other words, before wanting more, be faithful in a little. Organize your finances, take care of your resources, honor what God has already entrusted to you, because the abundance that remains is not left to the careless. Discipline is the sister of diligence, and both walk together on the journey of prosperity. They demand resignation, yes. They require waking up early, refusing distractions, overcoming tiredness. But they are what shield the heart against the regret of not having tried hard enough. They are what lead you to sleep with your soul at peace, knowing that you are building something that is truly worth it. And perhaps the biggest challenge of diligence lies precisely in constancy. Keep your spirits up when the results have not yet appeared. Keep walking even without applause. Work in silence, trusting that God is watching. Proverbs reminds us that the way of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until the day is perfect. In other words, maybe it's still dark today, but if you keep going, the light will appear. And when it shines, you're ready. Therefore, more than momentary intensity, God seeks daily constancy. Because it is not sporadic effort that builds prosperity, but continuous commitment to purpose. The diligent knows that his reward will not just come from what he does, but from who he is becoming in the process. And that's why he doesn't give up, even when everything seems at a standstill. He understands that every invisible planting generates a visible harvest at the right time, in the right way. And in the midst of all this, wisdom to decide, diligence to act, there is an element that supports both: integrity. In a world that normalizes shortcuts, that praises those who do well at any cost, the word stands up firmly and says, "The righteous walk safely, but those who stray end up stumbling over their own choices." Proverbs is categorical. True prosperity is founded on righteousness. Integrity is not only shown in great testing moments, but mainly in the details. It's time to declare a value, to negotiate with someone, to fulfill a promise made without witnesses. It appears when you choose not to benefit from an unfair opportunity, even though you know no one would know. Because integrity isn't about reputation, it's about essence. It's who you are when no one is looking. The Bible states, "A false scale is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight." In other words, God watches how we deal with money, and he is pleased when we are fair, even if it costs us profit, recognition, or momentary advantage. Integrity may even delay some gains, but it ensures that what you build is not accompanied by guilt, fear, or remorse. How many people have riches but no peace? They live surrounded by goods, but sleep with restless souls. The reason? They built on deception. And as much as this may seem like success to human eyes, before God, it is just sand. The word says, "Better is the poor man who walks in his integrity than one who is perverse in his lips and a fool." This is not an exaltation of poverty, but a warning. Do not exchange your essence for empty gains. Integrity also means coherence. It is acting according to what you believe. Many speak of faith, but do not hesitate to lie to maintain appearances. They say they trust in God, but they resort to corruption when scarcity strikes. True prosperity begins when you decide that, regardless of the value involved, your faithfulness to God is not for sale. When you declare with attitudes, "My hope is not in the money, but in the source that sustains it." And make no mistake, integrity is tested, especially when resources are tight. It's when the bills are due, when an easy opportunity appears, when you feel like you deserve something more. In these moments, choosing the right one seems more difficult. But it is precisely there that those who are building with God are proven. Because while the world values the result, the kingdom of God honors the process. And here's something profound. The Lord doesn't just bless what we do, but the way we do it. Integrity attracts favor. She opens doors where there were no windows. Proverbs shows us that the integrity of the righteous guides them, but the falsehood of the faithless destroys them. The righteous do not need to manipulate, deceive, or hide. He walks in peace, with his head held high, certain that his prosperity does not depend on artifices, but on God's faithfulness. But maybe you're thinking, what if I've already failed? What if I've already lied? What if I've already been unfair? Is there a way back? The answer is yes. God's grace does not condemn us, it transforms us. Sincere repentance is the starting point for reconstruction. Proverbs also teaches us that he who conceals his transgressions will never prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will receive mercy. It is not about pretending that nothing happened, but about handing over the past into the hands of the Lord and walking in newness of life. Integrity also shapes how you handle other people's money, whether in a position of trust, in a business, in a simple exchange. God watches how you manage what is not yours, because whoever is faithful with little, especially with the little of others, will be trusted with much. There are people asking God for more, when heaven is still waiting for them to be faithful with what they already have in their hands. Integrity is that invisible seal that authenticates your spiritual and emotional maturity. It also protects your reputation. In times of social media, visibility, and quick judgments, integrity becomes your shield. Even if someone tries to slander you, time reveals the truth. Character speaks louder than any accusation. And when your walk is clean, you don't need to prove anything. Your fruits speak for you. Proverbs says that the righteous walketh in his integrity. Blessed shall be his children after him. In other words, integrity is not just a spiritual inheritance, it is also a generational legacy. Finally, understand, integrity is not a prison. She is freedom. Freedom to sleep peacefully, to work with dignity, to grow without fear of falling because your roots are deep. Integrity is choosing the narrowest path, knowing that, even more difficult, it leads to an eternal destiny. It's walking with God, not just on Sundays, but in everyday decisions, including financial ones. And when you choose to live with integrity, you attract a kind of prosperity that the world doesn't understand. A peace that cannot be bought, a joy that cannot be explained, a favor that no one can steal, because God honors those who choose the truth, even when it seems too costly. And when He decides to honor you, there is no system that can stop it. If integrity defines what we do when no one sees, words reveal what we carry inside us. Proverbs not only guides actions, but also confronts the way we use language. Because what you say about money, about yourself, and about the future has more power than you realize. There are words that build fortunes and words that destroy possibilities before they even arrive. The Bible says that death and life are in the power of the tongue. This isn't just a poetic metaphor, it's a spiritual principle with a direct effect on our finances. When you constantly repeat that you will never get out of debt, money is difficult, this is not for me, you are planting seeds of scarcity in the soil of your mind, and everything that is fed grows, including scarcity. There is an invisible link between what you declare and what you experience. Words are not just sound, they carry convictions, and what you consistently believe inevitably influences your decisions. A heart that has become accustomed to declaring ruin will also make decisions that are inconsistent with abundance. And the opposite is also true. Whoever learns to speak with faith begins to act with courage. But be careful. Declaring faith is not ignoring reality. It is choosing which truth will prevail. The righteous live by faith, not by circumstances. And this also applies to finances. When you look at your bank account and decide to say, "God is my provider," that is not denial. It's positioning. It is trusting that even in times of scarcity, there is a source that does not dry up. And this trust, expressed in words, begins to create new possibilities. Proverbs also warns us about rushing into decisions. He says that hasty plans tend to poverty. How many times do we take impulsive financial actions driven by fear or anxiety? We go into unnecessary debt, we buy what we don't need, we accept dubious offers, and then we regret it. But wisdom teaches us to think, to pray, to seek advice, not allowing external pressure to replace inner peace. And here comes another point, the importance of consecrating our plans to the Lord. Proverbs says, "Commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established." In other words, when we involve God in decisions, even our thoughts are aligned. Clarity comes, the direction arrives, and peace confirms the path. This is a powerful strategy. Before making any financial decision, present everything before God and ask for wisdom to discern. Sometimes the problem isn't the value, but the timing. An idea may be good, but premature. An investment may be right, but it's not time yet. And when we talk too much, when we get excited without filtering our words, we run the risk of committing ourselves to something we won't fulfill. Proverbs says that he who keeps his mouth keeps his soul. This includes the financial soul. Talk less, listen more, pray always. This is the stance of the wise man. And even in conversations with others, there is care. Avoid surrounding yourself with voices that only know how to complain. Negative people contaminate the environment with unbelief. And without realizing it, you start repeating the same speeches. Prefer environments where faith is cultivated, where hope is nurtured, where words point to a possible future, even if the challenges are still real. The atmosphere you live in influences your statements. There is also the danger of silent comparison. You may not say anything out loud, but inside you it echoes. Why does so-and-so prosper and I don't? And this subtle comparison steals your gratitude, your focus, and your faith. Instead, choose to declare, God's timing is perfect. What is mine will come. When you exchange murmuring for expectation, your heart aligns with heaven, and words become portals to what is yet to come. Another important aspect is faithfulness in vows. How many times do we promise something to God in times of trouble, and when the good times arrive, we forget? Proverbs reminds us that it is better not to promise than to promise and not deliver. Your words are spiritual seeds. Honor what you say. Be true to God, to others, and to yourself. Because kept promises breed trust, and trust attracts favor. And if you feel like you said too much, complained too much, declared things that don't edify, know that there is still time to change. Transformation begins with repentance and repositioning. Starting today, decide to be intentional with your words. Choose to declare life even in the face of scarcity. Choose to bless even when you feel like criticizing. Choose to say what builds, what strengthens, because what you say today shapes what you will experience tomorrow. And remember, you are planting with your words. What do you want to harvest? Peace, abundance, direction. Then declare it with faith, with gratitude, firmly, because the sky moves when the earth declares. And when a heart aligned with God opens its mouth, it doesn't just speak to the wind, speak to the invisible, and the invisible begins to move to manifest the supernatural. If you are committed to aligning your words with your faith and wish to break with every declaration of scarcity, comment right now, I choose to declare life and abundance. We at the Codes of the Kingdom channel will leave a like on your comment and follow your progress closely, because those who speak with faith attract promises. And prepare if what comes next could be the missing step for you to finally experience supernatural multiplication in your life. Don't miss this opportunity. The next minute can change everything. If words build the environment, it is generosity that releases the resources of heaven. One of the greatest spiritual secrets hidden in Proverbs is this: giving does not diminish, it multiplies. God's logic often seems like a paradox to the natural mind. But in the kingdom, whoever withholds more than is fair becomes poor, and whoever distributes liberally becomes rich. This is not just a theological principle. It is a practical key to true prosperity. Proverbs says, "A generous soul will prosper, and he who waters will also be watered." It is a direct and powerful promise. When you choose to be a channel instead of a reservoir, something supernatural happens. What flows through you returns multiplied. Generosity activates an invisible cycle of blessings that touches not only your pocket, but also your soul, your environment, your history. Unfortunately, many associate giving with loss. They think that donating is giving up. But those who live by faith understand that donating is sowing, and every seed, when planted in the right soil, is destined for harvest. This is the logic of the kingdom. You don't lose when you give with purpose. You invest in something bigger than yourself. And God, who observes even the secret of the heart, rewards with a measure pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And this generosity is not limited to financial values. It's expressed in the time you dedicate, in the attention you offer, in the help you extend, even when no one asks you. It is the heart ready to bless. Because generosity isn't about quantity, it's about willingness. There are people with few resources who live with an abundant mindset, and there are people with a lot of money, but with an impoverished heart. The amazing thing is that the more generous you become, the more sensitive you become to the purpose of each resource that passes through your hands. You stop spending on impulse and start managing with vision. Generosity takes you away from vanity and brings you closer to purpose. You understand that money is a means, not an end, and that its mission goes beyond having. It is also to share, transform, and impact lives. Proverbs also warns us that he who closes his ears to the cry of the poor will also cry and not be heard. That's strong, because it reveals that generosity is directly linked to spiritual sensitivity. A heart hardened by selfishness distances itself from the presence of God. But he who cares, who moves, who responds to the pain of others, is closer to the Father's heart. And it is impossible to walk with God and not overflow what he is. And maybe you're asking yourself, but how can I be generous if I'm still struggling to pay my bills? Generosity does not wait for abundance to begin. It is born in faith. It manifests itself even in little things. Remember the widow who handed over 2 small coins. Jesus said she gave more than all the rich, because God does not measure value in numbers but in delivery. And whoever learns to be faithful in little is being prepared to manage much. There is something powerful about giving with intentionality. When you set aside a portion of what you have, present it to God and say, "This is for you. I trust you. I plant because I know you provide." You are breaking through the fear of scarcity and activating trust in the supernatural. And this is where miracles happen, not by merit, but by alliance. Generosity also breaks the power of the ego. It reminds us that we are not the center, that there are lives waiting for a gesture, for a word, for an opportunity. And when you bless someone, you become an answer to prayer. You actively participate in the move of God in someone else's life. This is too powerful to ignore. But there is also a warning. Generosity is not a bargain. It's not about giving and expecting immediate feedback. It is not about manipulating God with offers. True generosity comes from love, faith, gratitude. She is silent, confident, and full of purpose. She says, "I give because I have been blessed, and because I trust that I will lack nothing." This is the posture that activates the sky. And deep down, generosity is also an act of freedom. Because anyone who is a slave to money cannot open their hands. He lives trapped, anxious, afraid of losing. But whoever trusts in God lives in peace. You know that everything you have came from him, and whatever you need, he will provide. Therefore, give with joy, with lightness, with faith. Biblical prosperity is not just about how much you accumulate, but how many lives you transform with what you have. And Proverbs makes this very clear. God's blessing enriches and does not add pain. Generosity aligns your life with this kind of blessing, one that comes with purpose, peace, and fulfillment. And it's no wonder that many of the most prosperous men in the Bible were also the most generous. Abraham, Job, David, Solomon. Everyone understood that the secret of multiplication is not holding back. The more they gave, the more they received, because generosity attracts favor, opens unexpected doors, connects you with strategic people, and activates promises that were dormant. Therefore, if you want to see your financial life progress in a consistent and blessed way, start by examining your willingness to share. Ask yourself, am I being a channel or a reservoir? Am I accumulating out of fear or sowing out of faith? Because how you answer this question could reveal the next step in your growth. After understanding the power of generosity, a new question arises: how to wisely manage what God has already entrusted to us. Because there is no point in receiving, multiplying, and sharing if there is no solid planning supporting each step. Proverbs teaches us that planning is not just prudent, it is essential. It's what separates impulse from intention, immediacy from direction, confusion from clarity. The word states, "Well-laid plans lead to plenty, but those who are in a hurry always end up in misery." Here we see a powerful revelation. Thriving is a process, and processes require vision. No one builds a tower without first calculating the cost. The same is true with financial life. Every decision, no matter how small it may seem, has an impact on the whole, and planning helps us see beyond the now. Planning does not mean controlling everything, but rather positioning yourself responsibly in the face of opportunities and challenges. It's telling yourself, I'm not just going to react to what appears, but I'm going to act on purpose. And this involves organizing finances, forecasting expenses, identifying priorities, and separating the essential from the superfluous. All of this is spiritual too, because God honors those who manage what they have well. Many Christians with good intentions trust that God will provide, and yes, He will, but use this truth as an excuse to neglect their role. Faith does not replace responsibility. On the contrary, it enhances it. Planning is not a lack of faith. It is proof of maturity. It is saying, Lord, I trust in you, and therefore I will do my part with excellence. Planning protects us from impulsiveness. How many bad decisions are made in moments of excitement or despair? Unnecessary purchases, rushed financing, investments without study. Proverbs warns, he who acquires goods in a hurry will not remain innocent. This means that precipitation often leads us into traps that are difficult to get out of. Therefore, stopping, analyzing, and planning is a sign of wisdom. And don't think that planning is something complex. Sometimes a simple notebook and pencil are enough. It's looking at the resources that come and go, deciding clearly the destination of every penny. It means separating part for donation, part for consumption, part for savings, part for multiplication. It's naming the money before it gets lost along the way. Those who don't know where they're going end up being blown away by any wind. Planning also reveals where there is hidden waste. Sometimes it's not the lack of money that's the problem, but the lack of organization. Small and frequent expenses, when not mapped, become an invisible hole. It's that daily coffee, that forgotten subscription, that impulse consumption. And when you look back, you realize that you stopped investing in bigger dreams because of smaller habits. Furthermore, planning gives us freedom. It seems contradictory, but the more organized you are, the freer you feel. Because you know that you have a secure base, that you can deal with unforeseen events, that you are in control of what depends on you. And this security brings peace. It takes away the weight of uncertainty and brings the lightness of confidence. Not a blind trust in one's own efforts, but a wise trust that combines faith and responsibility. And here comes a precious point. Planning is also including God in the process. It's not just about calculations and spreadsheets, but about prayer and spiritual sensitivity. It's about seeking direction before closing a deal. It is to consult the Lord before changing jobs. It's saying, Father, what is your plan for my finances? And when He responds, and He always responds, you move forward with courage because you know you are aligned with heaven. Planning also prepares you for difficult times. Proverbs teaches us more than once to observe nature, especially the ant, which gathers in summer what it will need in winter. This is one of the greatest demonstrations of practical wisdom. Save, create reserves, not out of fear, but out of vision. Because difficult times are not signs that God has abandoned you. They are opportunities to live strategically what has already been prepared with diligence. And finally, planning is a reflection of the government you exercise over your own life. God called us to rule, not just survive. And the first territory you must learn to govern is your interior, your emotions, your impulses, your habits, then your home, your finances, your time. Every area you organize becomes a place where God can dwell more freely. Because chaos repels presence, but order attracts glory. So, if up until now you've acted without planning, don't blame yourself. But don't stay in the same place either. Start now. Take a piece of paper, do the math, review priorities. Pray about each step. Ask for wisdom. Seek advice, name your dreams, draw paths, make adjustments. And trust, the same God who gave you the vision will give you the resources and the strategy to fulfill it. After talking about planning and organization, we come to the point that supports everything that has been said so far: full trust in God. Because you can be wise, diligent, principled, generous and strategic, but without true faith in God's actions, all of this becomes a lonely effort. And the prosperity of the kingdom is not just the result of human action, it is a direct consequence of cooperation with heaven. Proverbs invites us to a deep surrender. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. This is the most powerful invitation in the book. Stop trying to control everything. Stop thinking that everything depends on you. When we put God at the center of our financial life, we make room for him to lead us to places we would never reach alone. But this trust is not passive. She is active, conscious, committed. It reveals itself when, even without seeing it, you obey, when even in fear you deliver, when even in the face of scarcity you plant. Faith is not the absence of struggle. It is knowing who you are supported by. And when that support is God, storms may come, but your foundation remains firm. Trusting is more than declaring. It's resting. It's closing your eyes and knowing that even when everything seems uncertain, he continues to be provision, direction, and shelter. And this confidence brings lightness, frees you from anxiety, comparison, guilt. It makes you understand that God's timing is perfect and that your role is to remain faithful, even when the results have not yet arrived. Throughout this video, we dive into 10 powerful principles from the book of Proverbs. We talk about wisdom as the foundation of a prosperous life, diligence as a bridge between intention and achievement, integrity as invisible protection, of words as seeds of the future, generosity as an engine of multiplication, planning as a divine strategy. And now we close with faith as the soil where everything takes root. These are not just concepts, they are spiritual codes, truths that, when applied, transform. And you are not here by chance. If you've reached this point, it's because there's something inside you screaming for change, for advancement, for liberation. And now the choice is yours. You can save this content as another video you watch, or you can take action. Position yourself. Decide that your financial life will reflect the presence of God in every detail. If you are truly determined to live a financial life with wisdom, integrity, and faith, prove it right now. Leave it in the comments. I will manage my finances with purpose. And we will go leave a like on your comment and follow you closely on this journey, because whoever commits himself to heaven does not go unnoticed on earth. Oh, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the time. Don't miss any more content like this that can radically transform your mindset, your story, and your harvest. Click sign up now, activate the bell, and let's continue growing together in wisdom and authority. And answer me here in the comments. What was the code that turned the key inside you? Comment below. We want to know which part spoke most to your heart. And if this video reached you, share with as many people as possible. Be generous. Just as you were blessed with this content, bless other lives. May more people have access to the light you received today. But don't stop here. The 2 videos that will now appear on your screen were chosen with purpose. Each of them is a practical continuation of what you just learned. The first will reinforce your abundance mentality, and the second will show you how to activate God's supernatural in your finances. Watch both. A new level awaits you, and it starts with your decision not to stop here.